The message arrived at exactly midnight. Earth Standard Time. Every screen on every human world displayed the same image. A tall creature with gray skin and 4 eyes stared into the camera. His name was High Sovereign Veltrix, ruler of the Galactic Empire, and he spoke with the voice of someone who had never been told no. Humans of the Terran systems, Veltrix said. You have 30 standard days to surrender all 17 of your worlds. You will give us your ships, you will give us your weapons, you will accept your place as servants of the Empire. If you refuse, we will burn every planet you have touched. We will leave nothing behind. This is not a negotiation. This is your only warning. The transmission ended. Silence fell across human space. Admiral Jack Lawson stood on the bridge of the TCS Defiance and watched his crew. Some of them were young, barely out of training. Others had served with him for 20 years. All of them looked afraid. He understood their fear. The Galactic Empire controlled over 2,000 star systems. They had conquered hundreds of species. Their fleet numbered in the tens of thousands. Humanity had 17 worlds and 300 warships. Sir, Commander Kate Mercer said. She was his first officer, a woman with sharp eyes and a mind that worked faster than any computer. What do we do? Lawson did not answer immediately. He walked to the viewport and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, an empire of ancient aliens had decided that humanity did not deserve to exist. They thought humans would simply accept their fate. They thought wrong. We fight, Lawson said. The Emergency Council met on Earth 12 hours later. Military leaders from every human world gathered in a single room. The arguments started immediately. Some wanted to negotiate. Some wanted to flee to unexplored space. Some wanted to surrender and hope for mercy. Ambassador Sam Torres listened to all of them. He was a diplomat, trained to find common ground between opposing sides. But there was no common ground here. The Valdari did not want peace. They wanted submission. I spoke with their representatives, Torres told the council. I tried to find terms we could accept. High Sovereign Veltrix called us temporary insects. He said our species would be forgotten within a generation. He laughed when I asked for more time. General Chris Parker slammed his fist on the table. He commanded all ground forces across human space. His soldiers were tough, but they had never faced anything like this. Then we make them remember us, Parker said. We make them pay for every inch of ground. We make them bleed for every world they try to take. The council voted. It was not close. Humanity would not surrender. Humanity would not run. Humanity would stand and fight, no matter the cost. Admiral Lawson received his orders 3 hours later. He was to take the Third Fleet to Kepler Station, humanity's most distant outpost. It sat at the edge of explored space, a small station orbiting a cold planet. It would be the first target when the Valdari attacked. We are going to die out there, one of his captains said during the briefing. Maybe, Lawson replied, but we will not die quietly. We will not die begging. When the Valdari write the history of this war, they will write about the humans who refused to kneel. The fleet departed the next morning. 47 warships flew in formation through the darkness between stars. They were small compared to Valdari vessels. They were fewer in number than anyone could count, but they flew with their flags raised and their weapons ready. Commander Mercer spent the journey studying Valdari tactics. She read every report from every species the Empire had conquered. The pattern was always the same. The Valdari would appear in overwhelming numbers. They would demand surrender. When surrender came, they would take what they wanted and leave the conquered species to serve them forever. They have never lost, Mercer said to Lawson one evening. Not once in 3,000 years. Then we will give them something new to think about, Lawson replied. On the 15th day after the ultimatum, the fleet arrived at Kepler Station. The station commander, a tired woman named Colonel Beth Hayes, greeted them with relief. We thought you might not come, she said. We are humans, Lawson told her. We do not abandon our own. The days passed slowly. Scouts reported Valdari movements along the border. Their fleet was assembling. 800 warships. Maybe more. the largest invasion force the Empire had ever sent against a single species. They were coming to crush humanity in one swift blow. Lawson gathered his officers for a final meeting. He looked at each of them. Kate Mercer, Ben Holloway, captain of the patrol vessel Sentinel, Tony Vance, commander of the Second Fleet, who had brought his ships to join the defense. They were good people, brave people. They deserved better than this. "I will not lie to you," Lawson said. "The odds are against us. They have more ships. They have more experience. They believe they cannot lose, but they do not know us. They do not know what humans are willing to do for their homes. They do not know that we would rather die free than live as slaves." Undersea, he paused and took a deep breath. "Terran Command has given us one message to send. One answer to their ultimatum. I want every ship to broadcast it. I want every station to repeat it. I want the Valdari to hear it in every corner of their empire." Lawson pressed a button on the console. The message went out across all frequencies. It traveled through space at the speed of light, reaching every ship and every world that could hear it. "Humanity does not surrender. Humanity does not retreat. Test our resolve at your own peril." On his throne world, far away across the galaxy, High Sovereign Veltrix received the message. He read it 3 times. Then he laughed. These humans were either very brave or very foolish. It did not matter. In 30 days, they would learn the price of defiance. In 30 days, their species would cease to exist. But deep in his ancient mind, something stirred. A feeling he had not experienced in centuries. He dismissed it quickly. It was nothing. It was certainly not fear. The countdown continued. The fleet prepared. And across human space, ordinary people looked up at the stars and made a simple choice. They would not break. They would not bend. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The war was about to begin. Captain Ben Holloway had been patrolling the border for 6 days when his sensors detected movement. 3 small ships under his command. 12 Valdari scouts ahead. The math was simple. The math was terrible. "Sir, they are scanning us," his tactical officer reported. "They know we are here." Holloway looked at the display. The Valdari ships were larger than his. They carried more weapons. They had shields that human weapons could barely scratch. Every training manual said the same thing. When outnumbered by Valdari forces, withdraw and report. "Hold position," Holloway said. His crew stared at him. They thought he had lost his mind. Maybe he had. But something inside him refused to run. Something inside him remembered the message that Admiral Lawson had sent across the stars. The Valdari squadron moved closer. Their commander, a young officer eager to prove himself, opened a communication channel. "Human vessels, you are in Imperial space. Surrender now, and you will be taken prisoner. Resist, and you will be destroyed." Holloway smiled. "This is not Imperial space. This is human space. You are the ones who should leave." The Valdari officer laughed. "You have 3 ships. We have 12. Do you not understand mathematics?" "I understand courage," Holloway replied. "Something your empire seems to have forgotten." He closed the channel and gave the order. His 3 ships accelerated directly toward the enemy formation. The Valdari were so surprised that they hesitated for a full 3 seconds. In space combat, 3 seconds was a lifetime. The TCS Sentinel fired first. Missiles streaked across the void and struck the lead Valdari scout. Its shields flickered and held, but just barely. The second volley came from the other 2 human ships. This time, the shields failed. The Valdari vessel exploded in a ball of fire and metal. The enemy returned fire. Holloway felt his ship shake as energy beams struck the hull. Alarms screamed. Damage reports flooded the bridge. But he kept fighting. His crew kept fighting. They were not going to stop. Another Valdari ship died. Then another. The human vessels took heavy damage, but they refused to fall. The Valdari commander, watching two of his ships burn, felt something cold crawl up his spine. This was not how it was supposed to happen. Lesser species were supposed to run. Lesser species were supposed to beg. All ships, retreat, Holloway finally ordered. His vessel was barely holding together. Two of his crew members were dead. But they had done the impossible. 3 human ships had faced 12 Valdari scouts and walked away. The news spread quickly. Admiral Lawson received the report on Kepler Station and read it twice. Captain Holloway had destroyed 2 enemy ships and damaged 3 others. He had shown the Valdari that humans would not be easy prey. "This changes things," Commander Mercer said. "It changes nothing," Lawson replied. "The main fleet is still coming. 800 ships against our 100. But now they know. Now they understand that we will bite back." Far away on Earth, Dr. Lisa Grant worked in a secret laboratory buried beneath a mountain. She was the lead scientist on Project Ironclad, a desperate attempt to create a weapon that could save humanity. Her team had worked without sleep for weeks. They were close. They were so close. "The shield generator is almost ready," she told General Parker during their daily briefing. "If we can get it to Kepler Station, we can protect the entire planet. Their weapons will not be able to touch it." "How long?" Parker asked. 2 weeks. Maybe less if we push harder. Push harder. We may not have 2 weeks. The Valdari fleet assembled at the edge of human space. Commander Zorath, a veteran of 100 conquests, looked at his forces with pride. 800 warships, 50,000 soldiers, enough firepower to crack a planet in half. The humans had no chance. High Sovereign Veltrix sent him a message. "Do not play with them. Do not give them hope. Crush them quickly and completely. I want their species to be a warning to any who would defy us." Zorath bowed to the screen. "It will be done, my sovereign. Within 1 month. No human will remain alive." But even as he spoke those words, reports from the border troubled him. The skirmish with Captain Holloway should not have ended the way it did. 2 Valdari ships destroyed by 3 inferior vessels. It was a small loss, but it was unexpected. Zorath made a note to be more careful. These humans were strange creatures. On the colony world of New Boston, Lieutenant Dan Cooper practiced combat maneuvers in his fighter. He was 23 years old. He had joined the military because he wanted to see the stars. He never thought he would have to fight for his survival. "They are coming," his squadron leader told them during briefing. "The Valdari will hit us hard. Our job is to protect the civilians. We hold the line until the evacuation ships can escape." Cooper looked at his fellow pilots. Some of them were his age. Some were older. All of them knew they might not survive. But none of them ran. None of them asked to be transferred somewhere safer. "We will hold," Cooper said. The others nodded. Sergeant Megan Shaw trained her ground troops every day. She drilled them in urban combat, in defensive positions, in how to fight when surrounded. Her soldiers complained about the brutal schedule. She did not care. "The Valdari think we are soft," she told them. "They think we will break at the first sign of trouble. We are going to prove them wrong. We are going to show them what happens when you threaten human homes." The countdown continued. 20 days until the deadline. 15. 10. The Valdari fleet began to move. Scouts reported their advance. 3 separate attack forces, each heading toward a different human system. The invasion had begun. Then came the news that shook everyone. A Valdari cruiser had captured a human colony ship. 6,000 civilians, including women and children, were now prisoners. The Valdari commander sent a simple message to Terran Command: "Surrender now, or we will kill them all." Admiral Lawson received the message on Kepler Station. His hands shook as he read it. 6,000 innocent lives. The Valdari were using them as hostages, trying to force humanity to give up without a fight. Commander Mercer watched him carefully. "Sir, what do we do?" Lawson closed his eyes. He thought about those 6,000 people. He thought about their families. He thought about what the Valdari would do to all of humanity if he surrendered. There was no good choice. There was only the choice that let humanity survive. "We do not negotiate with monsters," Lawson said. His voice was steady, but his heart was breaking. "If we surrender now, they will kill everyone anyway. Our only hope is to fight and win." He sent a message to the civilian families. He told them the truth. He told them he was sorry. He promised that their sacrifice would not be forgotten. Then he turned to his fleet and gave the order to prepare for battle. The Valdari wanted to test human resolve. They were about to learn exactly how deep that resolve went. The first attack came at dawn, Earth time. 200 Valdari warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel and surrounded the Arcturus system. Admiral Tony Vance stood on the bridge of his flagship and counted the enemy vessels. His fleet had 47 ships. The math was brutal. "All hands, battle stations," Vance ordered. His voice did not shake. He had been a soldier for 30 years. He knew what was coming. The Valdari commander sent the standard demand: surrender or die. Vance did not bother to respond. Instead, he ordered his fleet to fall back toward the asteroid field near the system's third planet. If they were going to fight, they would fight on their own terms. The enemy followed. They were confident. They had numbers. They had power. They thought this would be easy. Vance waited until the Valdari fleet entered the asteroid field. Then he sprung his trap. Mining charges hidden on dozens of rocks exploded at once. The blasts tore through Valdari shields and ripped open hull after hull. 15 enemy ships died in the first minute. "Now," Vance said, "hit them while they are confused." His 47 vessels emerged from hiding and opened fire. The Valdari formation scattered as human missiles found their targets. Explosions lit up the darkness of space. For a brief moment, it looked like humanity might actually win this battle. But the Valdari recovered quickly. Their commanders had fought in hundreds of wars. They reformed their lines and pushed forward with overwhelming force. Vance watched his ships die one by one. He pulled back, using every asteroid and every station as cover. He made the enemy pay for every inch of space. After 6 hours of fighting, Vance ordered the retreat. He had lost 23 ships. The Valdari had lost 63. It was a defeat, but it was not the quick victory the Empire had expected. On New Boston, the invasion began with fire from the sky. Valdari bombers struck military bases and communication centers. Lieutenant Dan Cooper launched his fighter as explosions shook the ground beneath him. The sky was filled with enemy aircraft. "Stay tight," his squadron leader ordered. "Pick your targets. Make every shot count." Cooper flew into the chaos. His first kill came 30 seconds later. A Valdari bomber turned too slowly, and his missiles found its engine. The enemy craft spiraled down and crashed into an empty field. Cooper did not celebrate. There were too many others. The battle for air control lasted 3 days. Human pilots flew until they could barely keep their eyes open. They landed, only to refuel and rearm, then took off again. Cooper lost count of how many times he faced death. He lost friends. He watched good pilots die. But he kept flying. Sergeant Megan Shaw waited for the ground assault. Her squad held a bridge on the outskirts of New Boston's capital city. The bridge connected 2 sections of the city. If the Valdari took it, they could cut off the evacuation routes. Shaw was not going to let that happen. The first wave hit at midnight. Valdari soldiers in heavy armor marched toward the bridge. They expected the humans to run. They expected quick surrender. Instead, they found Shaw and her soldiers waiting with weapons raised. "Hold the line," Shaw shouted. "Nobody crosses this bridge." The fighting was brutal. Valdari troops pushed forward while human defenders pushed back. Shaw fired until her weapon overheated. She picked up a fallen comrade's rifle and kept shooting. Her soldiers followed her example. They would not give up. They would not retreat. Hours passed. The sun rose. The Valdari sent more troops. Shaw lost half her squad. Reinforcements arrived just in time to prevent a breakthrough. The battle continued. After 18 hours, the Valdari pulled back. They had not crossed the bridge. Shaw looked at her surviving soldiers. They were exhausted, wounded, and covered in dirt. But they were still standing. "You did good," she told them. "You showed them what humans are made of." Far away, on the Valdari flagship, Commander Zorath received troubling reports. The invasion was succeeding. But slowly. Much too slowly. 3 human colonies had fallen. But the cost was higher than anyone had predicted. Ships that should have swept aside human defenses were instead fighting desperate battles for every system. Elder Crix, one of Zorath's advisors, brought him the numbers. "We have lost 112 warships in the first week. Our projections estimated we would lose 30 at most." Zorath stared at the report. "These humans fight like cornered animals." "They fight like they have nothing to lose," Crix replied. "I have studied their history. They are a young species, but they have spent most of their existence at war with each other. They know how to fight. They know how to suffer. They do not surrender easily." "They will learn," Zorath said. But his confidence was shaken. On the captured colony ship, the 6,000 human prisoners waited for death. The Valdari guards watched them with contempt. These weak creatures were not worth the trouble of keeping alive, but orders were orders. The hostages were useful as leverage. What the guards did not expect was resistance. A group of prisoners led by a retired Marine named Rick Harper had been planning for days. They waited until the guards changed shifts. Then they struck. Harper led the attack on the armory. Other prisoners created distractions. Children cried to draw guards away from their posts. Old men started fights that pulled attention in the wrong direction. By the time the Valdari understood what was happening, the prisoners had weapons. The fighting inside the ship was short and bloody. Harper and his people took control of the bridge within an hour. The Valdari guards, outnumbered and surprised, were overwhelmed. "This is the colony ship Freedom's Hope," Harper broadcast on all frequencies. "We are free. We are coming home." When Admiral Lawson received the transmission, he felt something he had not felt since the war began. Hope. The Valdari had taken those people to break human spirits. Instead, they had shown the galaxy what ordinary humans could do when pushed too far. News of the uprising spread across human space. Soldiers fighting on New Boston heard about it and cheered. Pilots defending Arcturus learned about it between missions. Civilians hiding in shelters talked about the prisoners who refused to be victims. Dr. Lisa Grant worked faster on Project Ironclad. General Parker ordered his troops to push harder. Admiral Lawson began planning a counterattack. The Valdari had wanted to crush human resolve. They had only made it stronger. On his throne world, High Sovereign Veltrix watched the reports with growing anger. A species that should have been destroyed in days was still fighting. His commanders were losing ships at an unacceptable rate, and now prisoners had somehow escaped. "Find them," he ordered. "Find them and make an example of them." But the Freedom's Hope had already disappeared into human space. 6,000 people who should have been dead were now safe. And across the galaxy, other conquered species watched with new interest. If humans could resist the Empire, perhaps they could too. The war was far from over, but something had changed. The Valdari were no longer sure of victory, and humanity was just getting started. 6 weeks into the war, the Valdari advance stopped. It did not stop because they had won. It stopped because they could not move forward anymore. Every system they attacked cost them ships. Every planet they invaded cost them soldiers. The mighty empire that had conquered thousands of worlds was bleeding. Captain Amy Chen commanded the TCS Shadow, a small vessel designed for special operations. Her mission was simple: go behind enemy lines, find their supply depots, destroy them. She had been doing this for 3 weeks. Her crew had not seen friendly space in all that time. They slept in shifts. They ate cold rations. They lived in constant danger, and they had become very good at their job. "Target ahead," her pilot reported. "Valdari supply station. Minimum security." Chen studied the sensor data. The station held fuel for enemy warships. Without fuel, those ships could not fight. It was a simple equation. "Take us in quiet," she ordered. "We hit them fast and disappear before they know what happened." The attack lasted 4 minutes. Chen's ship launched missiles at close range, destroying the station's defensive systems before they could respond. Secondary explosions tore through the fuel storage tanks. By the time Vuldari reinforcements arrived, the shadow was already gone. This was the third depot Chen had destroyed this week. Across enemy territory, other human raiders were doing the same thing. The Vuldari supply lines were collapsing. Their ships were running low on fuel and ammunition. Their soldiers were waiting for reinforcements that never came. Commander Zorath stood before High Sovereign Veltrix's image and tried to explain his failures. It was not going well. "You promised me victory in 30 days, Veltrix said. His voice was cold and quiet. That was worse than anger. It has been 6 weeks. The humans still resist. They fight in ways we did not expect, Zorath said. They strike from shadows. They refuse to surrender even when surrounded. Our losses have exceeded all projections. 157 ships, Veltrix said. That is how many we have lost. Against a species with barely 300 vessels. Explain this to me. 2. Zorath had no explanation. He had fought 100 wars. He had never faced an enemy like this. Humans did not act like conquered species were supposed to act. They did not give up. They did not beg for mercy. They fought until they were dead, and sometimes they won. I need more ships, Zorath said. I need the reserve fleet. Veltrix was silent for a long moment. The reserve fleet was 400 warships, kept back to defend the throne world. Sending them would leave the heart of the Empire exposed, but the alternative was unthinkable. The Vuldari could not lose to humans. It would destroy everything they had built. You will have your ships, Veltrix finally said. But this is your last chance. Destroy the humans or do not return. On Earth, Counselor Greg Morrison stood before the Terran Council and argued for peace. He was a politician, not a soldier. He saw the casualty lists. He saw the destroyed cities. He believed that negotiation was still possible. We have proven our strength, Morrison said. The Vuldari know we will fight. Perhaps now they will accept reasonable terms. Perhaps we can end this without more death. Admiral Lawson listened from a video screen. He was still at Kepler Station, preparing for the next phase of the war. He respected Morrison. The man genuinely wanted to save lives. But he was wrong. Counselor, we have intercepted Vuldari communications, Lawson said. Their orders are clear. They do not want our surrender anymore. They want our extinction. They see us as a threat that must be eliminated completely. There is nothing to negotiate. The Council voted. Morrison lost. The war would continue. Admiral Lawson launched Operation Counterpunch the next morning. Every available ship moved toward the 3 occupied colonies. It was time to take back what the Vuldari had stolen. The Battle of New Boston began at dawn. Human warships emerged from faster-than-light travel and immediately engaged the Vuldari defense fleet. On the ground, reinforcements landed in wave after wave. The fighting was fierce. Lieutenant Dan Cooper flew cover for the ground troops. He had survived 6 weeks of constant combat. He had become one of the best pilots in the fleet. But nothing had prepared him for this. There are too many of them, his wingman said, as they dove toward a formation of enemy fighters. Then we kill them all, Cooper replied. The air battle raged for hours. Cooper shot down 7 enemy aircraft. He took damage twice but kept flying. When his ammunition ran out, he landed, rearmed, and took off again. He did not rest. He could not rest. Too many lives depended on him. On the ground, Sergeant Megan Shaw led the assault on the capital city. She had been promoted to lieutenant after holding the bridge, but she still fought on the front lines. Her soldiers followed her without question. The Vuldari defenders fought hard. They had held this city for weeks. They were not going to give it up easily. But the humans pushed forward street by street, building by building. They took casualties. They kept coming. The breakthrough came on the 3rd day. Shaw's company found a weak point in the Vuldari defenses and punched through. Other units followed. Within hours, The enemy line collapsed. The Valdari commander ordered retreat. His soldiers fled toward the spaceport, hoping to escape before the humans caught them. Most did not make it. Lieutenant Shaw stood on the steps of the Capitol building as the sun set. The Terran flag was raised above her head. Soldiers cheered. Civilians emerged from hiding and wept with joy. New Boston was free. News of the victory spread across human space. Other battles were still being fought, but the tide had turned. The Valdari were no longer advancing. They were retreating. Admiral Sethix, the new commander of the Valdari fleet, reviewed the situation and made a decision. He was older than Zorath. He had seen more wars. He understood when victory was impossible. "We should negotiate," he told High Sovereign Veltrix. "The humans have proven they cannot be easily conquered. A prolonged war will cost us more than we can afford." Veltrix's response was immediate. "You speak like a coward. The reserve fleet will arrive within days. 400 fresh warships against their battered remnants. We will crush them at Kepler Station. We will burn their last stronghold. And we will end this embarrassment forever." Sethix bowed and said nothing more. But he knew what was coming. The final battle would be at Kepler Station. Everything would be decided there. Admiral Lawson received intelligence about the reserve fleet. 400 ships were coming. Added to what remained of the invasion force, the Valdari would have overwhelming numbers. Humanity's surviving vessels numbered barely over 100. "They want to finish this," Commander Mercer said. "One final battle. Winner takes all." Lawson nodded. "Then we give them a battle they will never forget. Contact Dr. Grant. Tell her we need Project Ironclad ready. This is our last stand." The human fleet gathered at Kepler Station. Every ship that could still fight. Every pilot who could still fly. Every soldier who could still hold a weapon. They came from all 17 worlds, ready to defend humanity's future. The wait began. The enemy was coming. And across human space, people watched the stars and hoped. The Valdari fleet arrived at Kepler Station on a cold Tuesday morning. 400 warships emerged from faster-than-light travel and formed a wall of metal and fire. Behind them came the survivors of the invasion force. Another 100 vessels, battered but still deadly. 500 ships in total, the largest fleet ever assembled against a single enemy. Admiral Jack Lawson stood on the bridge of the TCS Defiance and watched them come. His own fleet numbered 112 vessels. Every ship humanity could spare. It was not enough. It would have to be enough. "Dr. Grant," Lawson spoke into his communicator. "Is Project Ironclad ready?" "Ready and waiting," Grant replied from the surface of Kepler Station. "Just give the word." Lawson turned to Commander Mercer. "Signal all ships. Formation Delta. We make our stand here." The human fleet moved into position between the enemy and the station. 112 vessels against 500. The math had not changed. But something else had. These humans had been fighting for 6 weeks. They had seen friends die. They had watched colonies burn. They were not afraid anymore. They were angry. Admiral Sethix commanded the Valdari fleet from his flagship. He studied the human formation and felt a strange respect for his enemy. They knew they were outmatched. They fought anyway. It was foolish. It was also admirable. "Offer them one last chance to surrender," Sethix ordered. It was a formality. He knew they would refuse. The message came across all frequencies. "Human vessels, you are outnumbered and outgunned. Surrender now, and some of you may survive. Resist, and you will all die." Admiral Lawson answered with a single broadcast. His voice carried across space to every ship, human and alien alike. "You asked if humanity would break. Here is your answer." The TCS Defiance fired the first shot. Every human vessel followed. Missiles streaked across the void. Energy beams cut through darkness. The Battle of Kepler Station had begun. The Valdari answered with overwhelming force. Hundreds of weapons fired at once. The sky lit up with explosions. Human ships took damage, some of them critical. But they kept fighting. They kept pushing forward. Commander Mercer directed the battle from her tactical station. She had studied Valdari formations for weeks. She knew their weaknesses, and she exploited every single one. 3rd Squadron, target their right flank. 5th Squadron, draw their attention and pull back. We need to split their formation. Her strategy worked. The massive Valdari fleet was designed for crushing smaller enemies through sheer numbers. It was not designed for a foe that refused to stay still. Human ships darted between enemy vessels, striking weak points and disappearing before the Valdari could respond. Captain Ben Holloway led his squadron directly into the heart of the enemy formation. His ship, the TCS Sentinel, had been repaired after the border skirmish. It was not in perfect condition. Holloway did not care. Target the flagship, he ordered. If we take out their commander, their coordination falls apart. The Sentinel fought through a wall of enemy fire. Holloway lost 2 ships from his squadron, then 3. But they reached the flagship. They launched everything they had. The missiles struck Admiral Sethix's vessel in a dozen places. The bridge shook. Systems failed. Sethix gave orders to evacuate. But it was too late. The flagship exploded in a ball of fire that could be seen across the battlefield. Holloway did not survive to see it. The Sentinel was destroyed moments after launching its final attack. But his crew died, knowing they had changed the course of the battle. On Kepler Station, Dr. Grant activated Project Ironclad. A massive shield generator hummed to life. Energy spread across the planet's surface, creating a barrier that no weapon could penetrate. Valdari bombers that had been approaching the station suddenly found their targets unreachable. "The shield is holding," Grant reported. "They cannot touch us." The battle continued for 12 hours. Human losses mounted. 30 ships destroyed, then 50, then 60. But the Valdari lost more. Without their flagship to coordinate them, their formations fell apart. Human squadrons picked them off one by one. Lieutenant Dan Cooper flew until his fighter could barely hold together. He had started the battle with a full squadron. Now, only 3 pilots remained. But they kept fighting. "One more run," Cooper told his wingmen. "One more run and we pull back." They dove toward a Valdari carrier that was launching fighters. Cooper's missiles struck the launch bay, triggering secondary explosions that ripped the ship apart. His wingmen cheered. They had just killed a ship 10 times their size. On the station's surface, Valdari boarding parties attempted to land. Ground forces led by Lieutenant Megan Shaw met them at the landing zones. The fighting was close and brutal. Shaw had lost count of how many enemies she had killed. She had lost count of how many friends she had buried. But she held the line. "They are pulling back," one of her soldiers shouted. Shaw looked up. The Valdari shuttles were retreating. The boarding attempt had failed. She allowed herself a brief moment of relief before preparing for the next wave. But the next wave never came. After 12 hours of continuous combat, something broke inside the Valdari fleet. It was not their ships. It was not their weapons. It was their spirit. They had expected an easy victory. They had expected humans to surrender or die quickly. Instead, they had fought a desperate enemy that refused to give up, no matter the cost. The Valdari had lost over 200 ships. They had lost their admiral. They had lost their confidence. The retreat began slowly. One ship turned away from the battle, then another, then entire squadrons. The mighty Valdari fleet, the largest ever assembled against a single enemy, fled from Kepler Station. Admiral Lawson watched them go. His own fleet was devastated. 53 ships remained from the original 112. But they had won. Against impossible odds, they had won. "All ships, cease fire," Lawson ordered. "Let them run. We have made our point." On his throne world, High Sovereign Veltrix watched the battle through long-range sensors. He saw his fleet retreat. He saw humans celebrating on ships that should have been destroyed. He felt something he had not felt in 3,000 years. Defeat. The next morning, a transmission arrived at Terran Command. It was a request for peace negotiations from the Valdari Empire. Ambassador Sam Torres read it with disbelief. The same empire that had called humans temporary insects now wanted to talk. The negotiations took place on neutral ground. Torres sat across from Valdari representatives and dictated terms. Human sovereignty would be recognized. All occupied territories would be returned. Reparations would be paid for the damage caused during the invasion. The Valdari agreed to everything. When the treaty was signed, Torres allowed himself a small smile. The empire that had demanded human surrender was now accepting human demands. The galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. News of the victory spread beyond human space. Other species that had been conquered by the Valdari heard about the humans who refused to kneel. Whispers of rebellion began in dark corners of the empire. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted. Admiral Lawson stood on the observation deck of Kepler Station as the last Valdari ship left human space. Commander Mercer joined him. They watched the stars in silence for a long moment. "What happens now?" Mercer asked. Lawson considered the question. Humanity had survived. They had proven themselves to the galaxy. But the future was uncertain. Other challenges would come. Other enemies would rise. "Now we rebuild," Lawson said. "We honor those who died. We remember what we fought for. And we make sure no one ever tests our resolve again." He looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, alien species were telling stories about the humans who had done the impossible. Children on distant worlds would grow up hearing about the small species that stood against an empire and won. Humanity had earned its place among the stars. Whatever came next, they would face it together. They would face it as they always had, unbroken,